Okay, so we all watched the TV a few years back over the last couple of years of the riots in America and all of that stuff to do with BLM and everything. We were watching aghast at all the riots going on. I've not really talked to many guests about Black America and what is going on now, whether Biden and Bidenomics has been good for Black Americans, whether they're leaving for Trump, which I've seen lots of reports of lots of Black Americans now supporting Trump. But I don't know the answer to these questions or where we are now. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Donna Jackson, who is the director of 21 Black Leadership Network. Hello, Donna. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
Well, listen, this is your first time on the Freeman Report, so thank you for joining me. Donna, I wonder if you wouldn't mind to start. Let's learn a little bit about what you actually do as a job. You work for, you're a director at 21 Black Leadership America. Tell us what that is and what you do.
It's a Black conservative think tank. It's one of the oldest and largest in the country, and it started because of the Rodney King riots. And there was this notion that the only way that Black Americans respond to challenging situations is to riot, which happens to still be the subject today. There was a group of African Americans that said that this is not the way Black Americans normally respond, that there's a different way that only represented a fringe group. Unfortunately, in the media, especially the liberal media, they elevate these individuals and say this is characteristic of all African Americans. So we come from all stages of life, and we talk about strong families, free markets, upward economic upward mobility, and most importantly, self-sufficiency, not government dependency. So we're absolutely against over regulations.
Yeah. And do you think, Donna, in general, have the lives of Black Americans, do you think they've got better or worse over the last, I don't know, couple of decades?
I can say this. Liberal policies have dominated African American communities. And as a result, the African American community has seen the sharpest decline in family formation, economic opportunities, upward mobility, strong community morals. And all of these are a result of the policies of the left. I'll give you an example. They talk about how all of these so-called subsidies are helping African Americans. Biden really loves to talk about those. What they don't give you is the catch. Built into all of these subsidies that so-called is supposed to be helping Black Americans is the fact that you cannot have two parents in a household. And we know that high school graduation rates, actually employment, positive family formations is actually tied to two-parent households. Before all of these so-called liberal policies, African Americans had a higher percentage of two-parent households, somewhere at 85%. Since these policies, it's like 85% single parent household. And all of the destruction that you see is a result of not having two parents in the household. The other thing is this. They have these government subsidies that's supposed to be helping single African American households. But what they don't tell you is built into these subsidies are asset limits. That means the amount of personal assets you can have, whether it's private property, whether it's cars, cash on hand, savings, investment, $3,000. That's total
Oh,
asset, jewelry, what 3,000. So an African American who participates in these so-called government subsidies that's supposed to be helping minority families cannot even save for an emergency. So everything they get, even if the Biden administration gives out large subsidies, they have to spend everything they get. So we punish people who are in the lower rungs of society for doing the same things that the upper 10% of society does that we praise them for. No
This
investment.
sounds, yeah, this sounds, Donna, this sounds like an incentive to make sure that you haven't got any assets so that you can get these handouts.
Absolutely. I say there's two ways to grow the government: war and the poor. War requires an act of aggression by another country. The poor is easily. You just keep them poor, make
Yeah.
sure that they can't own private property, and then you can grow the government. Do you know that 85% of all the money that they earmark for so-called poverty programs actually goes to the administrative state and NGOs? 15%
Uh,
actually goes into the community, and even that amount is suspect. And it's getting worse under the Biden administration. When you hear them talk about the EV agenda, they know that minorities are automatically priced out of the marketplace for electric vehicles. I mean, first of all, you're not allowed to have an asset that expensive. You would have to sell, even if they gave you an electric vehicle, you'd have to sell it and live off the proceeds because you cannot own anything that expensive. And then the other thing is, it's not practical for a family when you're talking about a single parent household, when you have kids, to be able to get them from one place to another. It's not reliable transportation. I mean,
yeah.
at best, it's a get about car to go to the grocery store. And their answer for African Americans when you talk about transportation is the public transportation. Well, let's remember, during COVID, African Americans had the highest spread of COVID cases. You know why? Because they took public transportation, because they were pushed
Mm,
into these small urban, I call them open air prisons, they call them smart cities, where everybody is stacked on top of each other. And that's the reason why COVID spread so quickly. And now that's the only answer they have for minorities. And so this is problematic, because basically what they're doing is making sure that African Americans will help you in the short run as long as you never help yourself in the long run. So
yeah,
they're
exactly.
keeping people poor.
It's not helping people dig themselves out of that hole, is it? Um, Donna, what about race relations in the US? Because, we've seen critical race theory appear, rear its ugly head, well, in my opinion anyway, over the last, I don't know, decade or so, probably maybe longer in the US. In the UK here, a lot of this stuff, we're looking at it and we're looking at it spread amongst young people, and it's actually making things worse. It's making relations, race relations worse in the UK. What's the story in the US?
Now, that is the worst thing we've ever exported, is critical race
Yes.
theory. It's
Yeah,
the
thank you for
worst.
that, America.
It's the worst, because it's actually destroying relationships, even in this
Yeah.
country. Before critical race theory came along, people actually thought that race relationships were getting better. Now you're teaching people, first of all, that they should be afraid of each other, and we're more alike than we're different. The second thing is, now all of a sudden our success is dependent on what the other guy does. And that's problematic, because you always have to do a self-evaluation to see what you can do to be successful. In this country, there's economic opportunities for everyone. But what we have is people not taking advantage of those, because they think that this guy whose father, whose forefather look like him, and he owes us, so I shouldn't do anything on my own for my success, because I think he owes me something. And it's also teaching fear. I mean, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. If you think it's helping African Americans, it's not. Because now all of a sudden you have African Americans who are doubting their ability, because every time
Yeah.
you turn around, there's a carve out being given. because all this it's not because you earned anything because of your merit. It's because you got it because you checked the wrong boxes. I mean, for people like me, it's really detrimental because I've worked hard my entire life, always been proud of being competitive in the marketplace in terms of jobs. And now all of a sudden, people will look at me and say, "Oh, well, you just got that job because of the color of your skin." I didn't. I earned it. I worked hard. I sacrificed, and I was competitive. But now nobody will believe that. So the entirety of everything I worked for has been gone, is evaporated in just a year or so, which is really
Yeah. It
it's
is
a
destructive, isn't it? We've and of course, part of the critical race theory is about teaching victimhood as well, isn't it? It's telling people that they're victims, that they're being oppressed by other people, instead of sort of teaching people to stand on their own 2 feet and create their own opportunities, like you clearly have, Donna. Now, Donna, we're going to go to a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Stay right there because I've got lots more questions for you, including, what do you think the answers are to this? How does America solve this problem? Because it does seem to be, things seem to be getting worse, both in terms of relations between blacks and whites, but also, the actual, you've talked about there, the actual, the potential and the opportunities for blacks seem to be getting worse, not better. So let's talk about what you think the solutions are to that. So don't go anywhere, Donna, stay right there, right with us on TNT.